I set up my tent by the lake. I thought it would be peaceful. Just me and the sounds of the forest. I cooked dinner as the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows. The evening air felt nice, and I planned for a week of surveying the area. I felt ready. But then, as night fell, I heard a noise. At first, it was soft splashes in the water. I told myself it was probably just a fish, maybe a curious raccoon. I tried to sleep, but a chill ran down my spine. It felt like I was being watched. Around midnight, the splashes came again. They were louder and more rhythmic. My heart raced. I crawled out of the tent and walked to the water. I looked into the dark depths, squinting to see anything moving. Nothing was there. Still, I felt uneasy. The next night, the splashes returned. This time, they were joined by tapping on the tent. I jolted awake, my heart pounding. I listened closely. Maybe branches were brushing against the canvas. But then, the tapping got louder. It didn't stop. Each sound echoed in the stillness. I wanted to close my eyes and drift away, but I just couldn't shake my fear. On the third night, I decided to check things out. I walked deeper into the forest and found strange markings on the trees. They looked like deep claw marks. My hair stood on end. What made these? I hurried back to camp, feeling like I was going crazy. Was I really alone out there? Later, I found a pile of old photos near the lake. They were faded and worn. Most of the faces were those of park visitors long gone. But their eyes, they looked dark, almost hollow. I felt a shiver run through me. Somehow, those pictures felt connected to the lake. Was that why I felt so wrong? Then came the last night. I could feel something heavy in the air. The splashes turned into frantic thrashing. I could barely breathe. I stood there frozen, staring into the water as the noise escalated. A nagging voice told me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. Suddenly, I heard a soft whisper, almost musical. "Come closer." It echoed in my mind. Panic surged through me, and I spun to flee. But then I felt something gripping my arm. I whipped around, expecting to see someone there. But there was nothing, just darkness. I stumbled away from the lake, my heart racing. I didn't look back. When I finally reached my car, I threw my gear inside and drove away without a second thought. What was it that night? What really lurked below the surface? I still can't shake the feeling that whatever it was, it's still out there. I drove for hours, the gravel road beneath me blurring into a smoky haze of pine and dust. Even with the sun shining, I still felt the weight of night pressing on my mind. I couldn't shake the images of those strange claw marks or the hollow eyes in the photographs. My heart raced as I replayed the whispers and splashes over and over. After I finally reached civilization, I checked into a small motel. As I tossed my bag onto the bed, I noticed the wooden rafters overhead felt oppressively low. I needed to sleep, but sleep refused to come. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, tuning into the sounds of the night. I could have sworn I heard the whisper again, the same melodic voice. "Come closer." It unnerved me. I must have imagined it. I tried to focus on anything else. I reminded myself that I was safe. The motel had walls, doors, and lights. I tried to distract myself by scrolling through my photos from the trip. That's when I stumbled onto the blurry snapshot I'd taken near the lake. It took up a whole frame and showed nothing but rippling water. But then I noticed something. In the corner of the picture, a dark shape loomed just beneath the surface. It was subtle, hardly recognizable, but it was there, almost like it was straining against the waves. I flipped through more photos, looking for other signs, but nothing compared. My heart sank. What was this thing? Was it just my mind playing tricks? Desperate for clarity, I decided I had to go back. I drove to the local library the next morning, hoping to find some answers from locals or the books they might have. The librarian was a woman with deep-set eyes, her hair gray and wild. She studied me as I asked about the lake. "Just last week there was a case of someone getting lost out there," she replied with a frown. "People say it's not a good place to camp. There's something there. You shouldn't go back." I felt my stomach twist. "What do you mean? What exactly is out there?" She hesitated, glancing at the door as if she expected someone to walk in. Folks like to talk about things deep in those waters. Old legends. You won't find it in the books, but those trees, they know. And those who listen too closely often go missing. A chill ran down my spine, but I pressed on. What kind of things? Things that take, things that change people. Not all who go in come back out the same. Her voice faded into a whisper, and I felt the hairs on my arms prick up. Then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it. A flash of movement outside the library window. An old man peered inside, his eyes wide and searching. When our eyes met, he shuddered and hurried away. I had to know more. I left the library, intent on finding him. "Sir," I called, rushing after him. But by the time I reached the street, he was gone, vanished into thin air. What did he know? As darkness began to fall, a sense of urgency gripped me. I had to figure out what was happening. I needed to return to the lake. There were pieces to this puzzle, and I was determined to fit them together. But part of me wondered, was I ready for what I might discover? I drove back to the lake with a pit in my stomach. Doubt swirled around my mind, but curiosity pulled me forward. The sun was just starting to set when I parked near the water's edge. Shadows danced along the tree line, and the air felt thick, almost electric. I stepped out, the crunch of gravel underfoot somehow deafening in the stillness. I walked to the same spot where I had taken that photo. My heartbeat quickened as the woods loomed behind me, tall and silent. Right then, I felt the pull of the water, an urge to lean in closer. I could see the ripples shifting, and my breath caught in my throat. I had to know what was beneath. Just as I knelt down, studying the dark surface, I noticed something float by. A branch? No, it looked too large. Squinting, I adjusted my position for a better view. That was when I saw it. A glint of something metallic, half submerged in the murky depths. A wave of dread washed over me, but I couldn't look away. "Come closer." The whisper echoed in my mind, stronger now. I shook my head, banishing the memory as best as I could. It was nothing, just a trick of my imagination. I took a deep breath and went to grab a stick, plunging it into the water to see what was down there. As I poked at the dark shape, I felt resistance. Whatever it wasn't just some lost piece of trash. My heart thumped even harder now, but a compelling need to uncover the truth drove me on. That's when I heard the rustle behind me. I turned, heart pounding. A figure stood shyly within the trees, a young woman with dirt-smudged cheeks and wild hair. She stared wide-eyed at me, the fear in her gaze palpable. "Don't go in there," she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't know if I should take her seriously or if she was just another local with an overactive imagination. "Why?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Her eyes darted to the water, and she took a step back, almost as if she were afraid it might reach for her. "You don't understand," she said, voice low. "It took my brother. I saw him go under, and when he came back..." She trailed off, tears welling in her eyes. In that moment, something clicked in my mind. This wasn't a simple camping tale. This was real. I remembered the librarian's words, the old man's fear. "What do you mean it took him?" I pressed, desperation creeping into my tone. She shook her head, looking like she wanted to run but couldn't. "He's not himself anymore. I don't know how to explain it. Please, just leave." I hesitated, torn between fear and the need for answers. Should I trust her? Could I leave now, knowing I might be walking away from the key to my questions? Then I noticed something moving just beneath the water again, darker this time. An instinct kicked in. I took a step backward, suddenly feeling acutely aware of how vulnerable I was to whatever lurked below. Before I could respond, a distant sound broke the tension. A low, resonant hum vibrating through the ground and into my bones. It felt wrong. "Run!" the woman shouted, panic gripping her voice. Without thinking, I bolted back to the path, the woods closing in around me. What was happening? I could still hear that haunting hum echoing in my ears as I fled, and I knew I couldn't turn back, not now. But it was too late. I could feel the weight of something watching, waiting. I sprinted through the trees, limbs scratching at my arms as I pushed through the underbrush. The sound of my feet pounding against the ground competed with that unnatural hum. It surrounded me, vibrating in my bones, as if the forest itself was alive with energy. Just ahead, I caught a glimpse of the woman's wild hair as she dashed into the thickening shadows. I called out to her, desperate for some guidance, but my voice was swallowed by the growing chaos. I felt completely alone, the dread creeping in with every ragged breath I took. I broke into a clearing, but I didn't stop. I could feel something tracking me, a presence lurking just beyond the edge of my sight. I darted left, heading back toward the lake and the road. Behind me, the hum faded to a whisper, but I knew it wasn't gone. Then I stumbled. The ground dropped beneath me and I tumbled, landing hard on the damp moss. My hands sunk into the soft earth as I pushed myself back up. Pain shot through my knee, but I pushed it aside. I couldn't stop. I scrambled to my feet again, looking back towards where the sound had last resonated. The woman stood at the water's edge, frozen. "You have to leave," she shouted again, her voice trembling. "What about you?" I yelled back, the fear clawing at me now. I felt a deep instinct to pull her away, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Suddenly, from the depths of the lake, I saw something shifting. It rose slowly, breaking the surface with an eerie elegance. My heart raced as I squinted at the dark figure. It wasn't human. It was large and slick, reflecting the last rays of sunlight in ominous flashes. Whatever it was, it seemed to be watching both of us. The woman gasped, stepping back from the water. "No!" she cried, the deep, resonant hum growing louder again, mixing with the thrumming of my pulse. I knew then what had happened to her brother. I didn't want to believe it, but I felt my mind unraveling, weighing the possibility of what stood before me. Was this what had taken him? Then the creature surged, powerful and leaping out of the water like a twisted marionette. My heart stopped. It landed with a splash, water spraying in all directions. I could see now, two wide, hollow eyes fixed on the woman. Whatever was left of her brother, it had somehow returned, transformed into this nightmare. "Run!" I screamed again, adrenaline hitting me like a rush. I tore my gaze away, the urge to look away battling my need for answers. I broke for the tree line, matching her speed, but she hesitated, drawn by something in that lake. I grasped her arm. "We have to go." My words felt urgent and raw. She finally turned her gaze from the water, terror etched on her face. For the first time I saw the conflict in her eyes, the pull of that darkness versus the fear of it. I knew we couldn't wait any longer. We ran, hearts pounding as we entered the dense foliage. I could hear splashes behind us, and the hum transformed into frantic whispers that echoed around me, calling my name. I didn't resist the urge to look back. That was when I felt something cold grip my ankle. I stumbled, falling to the forest floor. The breath left my lungs as I struggled against whatever was holding me. The woman was still running, but I could see the fear trepidation in her movements. "Help!" I shouted, but all that answered was a disquieting silence from the water. Then everything below my waist went dark. My heart dropped. My mind raced as the darkness crept up my legs. I thrashed, trying to free myself, but the grip tightened. Panic surged in my chest. Was this the creature? Had it reached out from the water to pull me under? "Help me!" I cried again, my voice shaky and desperate. The last glimpse of the woman vanished into the trees, leaving me feeling utterly abandoned. My heart hammered against my rib cage, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. As the shadows closed in, I felt a sudden release. The cold grip was gone. I didn't wait to process what had just happened. I rolled to my side and pushed myself up, adrenaline coursing through me. The forest loomed dark and intimidating, but I couldn't stay still. I staggered to my feet and ran deeper into the trees, leaving the clearing and whatever had tried to grasp me behind. Branches whipped against my arms, and the low rumble of the lake faded as I pressed on. I heard the whispers again, distant yet urgent. They echoed through the foliage, teasing my senses. I couldn't make out the words, but they felt like a dire warning. "Where are you?" I whispered, guilt nagging at me for leaving the woman behind. I had to find her. Maybe she knew what we were up against. She had seen it after all. I pushed through the thicket, my mind racing with questions. What did that creature want? Why the pull towards the water? I needed answers, but I was also terrified of what would happen if I found them. Then I tripped again, my toe catching on a root. I fell face first into the damp earth, gasping. As I rose, brushing the dirt off my clothes, something caught my eye just beyond the trees. A faint light flickered, barely perceptible through the branches. I squinted at it, my instincts warning me to stay away, yet an odd curiosity urged me forward. I approached slowly, picking my way through the underbrush. My heart quickened with each step. As I neared the light, the whispers transformed into low, indistinct murmurs, rising and falling like a haunting lullaby. The light turned out to be a small opening leading into a clearing ringed by twisted trees. In the center, a pool reflected the moonlight above. It looked different from the lake I had just fled, almost inviting. The surface shimmered with colors, greens, blues, and whites that danced in the night air. Beneath the water's surface, I thought I could see shapes swirling. They looked human. I leaned closer, an inexplicable urge pulling me toward the pool. The whispers grew louder now, beckoning me to listen, to come closer. Just as I felt the cool water lap at my feet, I heard it again. A scream. Not just any scream, but the unmistakable voice of the woman. My heart jolted. She was in trouble, and I had to act fast. Without thinking, I jumped back from the water, the weight of my earlier decisions crashing down on me. I had left her. I had to go back. But as I turned to run, I saw it, the creature slithering its way toward me, rising from the shadows beyond the pool, its hollow eyes fixated on me. I froze, gripped by terror. Then everything went chaotic. The pool's light flickered, shadows lunged, and the whispers turned into a deafening roar. I stumbled back, the world spinning as the creature drew nearer, its intentions clear. It wasn't just playing with me. It wanted me. I stumbled back, my heart racing uncontrollably. The creature, whatever it was, drew closer, its movement smooth and unsettling. I could see now that its form was not entirely human, with elongated limbs and slick, glistening skin that warped under the moonlight. There were no obvious features to grasp, just an abyss where its eyes should have been, making me feel like I was staring into a dark void. Took a step back, then another. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the horror before me. Then, the whispers morphed again. They shifted from eerie lullabies to urgent commands. "Help her," they echoed, louder than before. The voice of the woman mingled with the others, almost as if she was calling for me through enchanting melodies of despair. "Why?" I gasped out loud, the question ripping from my throat. I didn't understand. I couldn't begin to fathom how a creature like this could demand anything from me, yet I felt the weight of its presence compelling me forward. In that split second, something sharp jabbed into my ankle. I looked down to see a thorny vine wrapping around my leg, almost as if the forest itself was trying to keep me rooted in place. Panic surged again. I yanked my foot, but the vine tightened its grip like a vice. I waved my free hand frantically, attempting to bat away the creeping tendrils. "Let me go," I hissed, a mix of fear and anger fueling my words. I glanced back at the creature. It was within an arm's reach, its shape pulsating, as if it were alive with malicious intent. My head spun, the air thick with desperation. Then in the corner of my eye I saw movement in the pool again. Shapes began to surface, clearer this time. Faces. They were contorted in anguish, reaching out toward me, silent screams etched across their features. I recoiled, my skin prickled with the realization that I was looking at the faces of those who had come before me. Was this where she was? Was she trapped among them, lost in the murky water? "Help her!" A voice broke through the chaos, firm and filled with authority. I didn't recognize it, but I felt the command pull at me. I couldn't just stand there. The woman needed me. With a surge of determination, I grabbed the vine and tore it away, wincing as thorns bit into my skin. Pain ignited my senses and I staggered forward, past the creature. I ran toward the pool without looking back. Every instinct warned me against it, but something inside me drove me to leap into the water. The icy shock hit me like a tidal wave. Panic seized my chest again, but I fought it off. I swam down, every stroke fighting against an unseen current that tried to pull me deeper. The faces swirled around me, their eyes wide with both horror and hope. They didn't want me here, but I was committed now. "Where are you?" I cried, my voice muffled by the water. I forced myself to search through the darkness. The more I looked, the more the faces faded, their forms blending into the darkness like shadows in a nightmare. Just as despair began to wash over me, I felt a hand grasp my wrist. It was cold, but it wasn't menacing. My heart raced as I turned to face her. It was the woman, the one from before. But then, everything went dark. I gasped for air, waking suddenly to a shiver down my spine. My body lay cocooned in damp, mossy ground. Panic surged anew as I scrambled to my feet. The pool was gone, replaced by the towering trees of the forest. Branches clawed at the sky like grasping fingers. Night had fully enveloped my surroundings, the moon now casting eerie shadows everywhere. I reached for my throat, feeling waterlogged cloth. My clothes clung to me like a second skin, heavy and uncomfortable. "What just happened?" I whispered to myself, glancing around in confusion. There was no creature lurking, no faces staring back from the depths, but I could still hear the whispers, faint but insistent, urging me to remember. What do you want?" I stammered, dread pooling in my stomach as I took a trembling step forward. The air had changed, thick with something other than the scent of damp earth. There was an underlying stench that made my stomach churn, something rotten and vile. Then, just beyond the trees, I heard it again. A rustling, then a low, chilling hum that echoed through the wood. Heart pounding, I followed it, the sound pulling me like a moth to a flame. I had to know what lay ahead, what awaited in the dark. As I moved closer, the hum grew more distinct, blending with the whispers. It was melodic, haunting, almost like a song, yet filled with sorrow. Instinctively, I felt the urge to turn back, to escape whatever lay ahead. But my feet refused to listen. I pushed deeper into the thicket, each snap of twigs underfoot echoing in the stillness. The forest opened into a small clearing, moonlight spilling over the scene. Another pool of water shimmered before me, smooth as glass. This wasn't the same one, but something about it felt familiar. The melody wrapped around me like a blanket. My heart raced with anticipation, a mix of fear and curiosity. And then I saw her, standing at the edge of the water. The woman. She was bathed in moonlight, her long hair cascading around her shoulders like a dark veil. But this time, something was different. She appeared ethereal, almost translucent, with a sadness etched on her delicate features. "Help me," she breathed, her voice a fragile whisper that drifted through the air. "Please." I took a step forward. "What happened to you?" My voice cracked under the weight of the moment. She held out her hands, fingers trembling. "Don't listen to them," she warned urgently, the melody shifting to a more frantic tune. "They want to drag you under. You mustn't get too close." But as she spoke, the soothing hum swelled, drowning out her words. It was mesmerizing. I felt drawn to face the water again. The surface rippled, reflecting moonlight and darkness in eerie patterns. Shapes began to swirl beneath the surface, shadows of memories twisting in the depths. That's when I realized I wasn't the only one who had come here. She cried, her voice breaking the spell. "They're waiting for you." Fear seized me again. I stepped back, instinctively wanting to escape, but it was too late. My heart dropped as I heard the low growl rising behind me. The creature had returned, and this time it was not alone. I turned to run, but shadows poured from the trees, blocking my path. There were faces in the darkness now, staring hungrily, whispering wildly. I was trapped. Just as I grasped for the woman's hand, the ground beneath me gave way. I fell into darkness, swallowed whole by the very shadows I had feared. I tumbled into the pitch-black void, the rush of air stealing my breath. Panic clawed at my chest as I fell. Time stretched unnaturally, and I braced for impact. I landed with a thud on soft earth, the dampness seeping into clothes. Groaning, I forced myself to sit up, squinting into the darkness. I was underground, or maybe in a hollow. The air was cold, heavy, and stale. I could hear water dripping nearby, but there was no sign of the woman, no glimmer of light. "Hello? Are you there?" I called out, my own voice trembling. Silence answered me. I pushed myself to my feet, brushing dirt off. My heart hammered in my chest, each thud amplifying the dread creeping back. I turned, half expecting to see the shadows rushing toward me again. If I had escaped their grasp, it felt temporary. Then the whispers began again. They were different now, more urgent, echoing all around me. "Join us," they murmured, voices blending together like a song I couldn't quite place. "Fall into the depths." I backpedaled instinctively, bumping into something cold and unforgiving. Heart racing, I turned around to face the wall behind me. It was slick and damp, the surface uneven. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself, needing to focus. Just as I took a breath, a faint glimmer caught my eye. I stepped forward, heart pounding louder. The darkness faded slightly as I approached. It was a narrow stone passage leading to a flickering light. I had no idea what lay ahead, but something inside me urged me to explore. I hesitated at the entrance, both excited and terrified. What if the whispers were right? What if I was meant to join the others? Or worse, what if something far more sinister awaited? With a deep breath, I stepped into the passage. The air turned warmer, a stark contrast to the chill that had settled in my bones. As I neared the light, details came into focus. It was a small chamber, lined with crystals that illuminated the space in ethereal hues. In the center sat the pool, the same one that had drawn me before, shimmering oddly. I edged closer, drawn to its surface again. The whispers grew louder still, and I felt dizzy. There was no escaping the pull. I had to know what lay beneath. My heartbeat quickened as I bent down, peering into the depths. The reflections twisted into clearer images. Faces stared back at me, eyes hollow and pleading. I recognized a few. People I had lost, moments I wished to forget. Horrified, I fell back, realizing they had all been through this. I was not the first. Suddenly, a cry pierced the air. A desperate choking sound. I scrambled to my feet, looking around. "Who's there?" I shouted, fear flooding my veins. The light flickered as shadows closed in at the chamber's entrance. That's when I saw it. Emerging from the darkness, an elongated figure with pale skin and deep-set eyes. It stepped forward, revealing a knowing smile. It was then I realized the true horror of the pool and the whispers wasn't merely the shadows. It was what was waiting beyond them. The figure lingered just beyond the light, its smile unnerving, almost mocking. I stood frozen, every instinct screaming at me to run. But where could I go? The chamber felt small, the shadows closing in, thickening like fog. "Why are you afraid?" it asked, its voice smooth but laced with an edge that sent a shiver down my spine. I managed to take a hesitant step back, searching for any sign of escape. "You know why you're here." "Who are you?" I demanded, forcing the words out through my tightening throat. I had to stand my ground even if I felt ready to crumble. The figure tilted its head, as if considering the question. "I'm a guide," it said, the word dripping with insincerity. "I can help you understand. You fear the past, but those who are lost have so much to teach." I shook my head, backing up toward the pool. "What do you want with me?" My voice wavered. "Nothing, except for you to listen." It took a step forward and the shadows shifted, flickering like candle flames. I grasped the edge of the pool, feeling the cool, slick stone beneath my fingers. "Look into the water. See the truth." I hesitated. The pool still glimmered, faces swirling beneath the surface, lost souls intertwined with my own memories. "No, I don't want to see." The figure's smile widened, transforming into something more sinister. "But you must. You're drawn here for a reason. Isn't it time to confront what you've been running from?" It reached a hand toward me. An impulse surged through me. I wanted to bolt, to escape whatever this was. But something kept me rooted, a morbid curiosity mixed with fear. I forced myself to look closer into the water despite the dread pooling in my stomach. This time, instead of vague images, a specific face emerged. A loved one I hadn't thought about in years, tears glistening in their eyes. The pain washed over me, a tidal wave of loss. My heart thudded. "Please stop," I shouted, pulling away, but the figure only chuckled softly. "Do you see? You can't escape it. The past is never truly behind you." The shadows coiled tighter around me, their whispers rising like an unseen current. "Join us," they chant, and I felt my resolve wavering. Each face from the depths called to me, and I struggled to pull away from their haunting cries. In that moment I understood. The figure wasn't just a guide, it was a harbinger, a reminder of all I had buried. The pool wasn't just a reflection of my fears, it was an invitation to embrace them. But could I really face the truth of my past? Before I could decide, the ground trembled beneath me. The pool bubbled viciously, as if rejecting the presence of the figure. The water surged higher, spilling over the edge. In a panic, I backed away. "What's happening?" "Your time is running out," the figure warned, its smile fading. "You must choose now or the darkness will choose for you." The chamber spun, the light flickering dangerously. I had to get out. But as I turned to flee, the shadows lunged. They engulfed me, pulling me into their depths. My breath hitched as the world went black, only the echoes of that haunting voice remaining. Then everything went dark. I awoke on the forest floor, heart racing, breath coming in ragged gasps. The stillness around me was deafening, a stark contrast to the swirling chaos of dreams I couldn't quite grasp. It took me a moment to reorient myself, to realize I was back at the edge of the lake, mist rising in tendrils in the morning light. The air was thick with moisture. Something felt different. I sat up, rubbing my temples, still feeling the weight of lingering dread. Had it all really happened? The creature, the whispers, the woman? With a shaky breath, I stood and scanned my surroundings, half expecting to find the darkness looming again. But there was only silence. Panic bubbled within me. Had I imagined it all? I looked toward the water and a lump formed in my throat. The surface appeared smooth, untainted, but somehow it felt like an invitation, a siren's call clinging to the very air. I took a cautious step backward, unwilling to give in to that haunting urge. But then I remembered her, the woman at the pool. She hadn't left me. I had run, I had escaped, but I needed to know. Gathering my resolve, I approached slowly, my feet crunching against the gravel at the water's edge. I squinted, peering into the depths. Just beneath the surface, shadows danced like memories fading in the light. I held my breath, memories of her fearful expression resurfacing. "Don't listen to them," echoed in my mind, and for a moment, doubts flickered like candlelight. As my gaze held steady on the water, I could almost hear the faint whispers again. The calls of the lost, the echoes of the past with their relentless pull. I wondered what had truly happened to those who had vanished, to the woman who had begged me to help her. Did she too fall victim to the darkness? With a shudder, I stepped back again, realizing how close I had come to surrendering to the shadows. I wouldn't let that happen. I had broken free once. I could do it again. But as I turned away, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A shape rising in the water, dark and amorphous. It twisted and churned, reaching toward me with an otherworldly fluidity. I froze, feeling the weight of the air shift as the wooden trees creaked with expectation. "Help us!" A chorus of voices sang in the wind, mingling with the ripples of the lake. The call tugged at something deep within me. I wanted to turn away, to forget the horrors of the night before, but the faces in the water swirled in my mind. What if the woman was still trapped within those depths, caught between worlds? I backed up, the discontent growing in my chest, a part of me yearning to go back. And yet something crucial dawned on me. My choice. I could leave, close this chapter forever. Or I could stay and risk the nightmares coming true. But would seeking answers only lead to darkness? I glanced down at my trembling hands. I had no clear answer. Perhaps those who ventured near the lake were fated to learn the truth, regardless of the cost. That thought stayed with me as I turned and walked away from the water, the first rays of sunlight breaking through the canopy above. I moved alongside the trees, taking one last glance back at the lake before heading down the overgrown path. The whispers started to fade, but I could still feel their weight hanging in the air. I drove away without looking back, the forest disappearing into the background. Questions lingered like a fog, but maybe that was how it needed to be. Maybe some truths were not meant to be uncovered. I found myself glancing in the rearview mirror more than once, half expecting to see something or someone lurking at the water's edge. I never did. I still think about that lake sometimes, about the woman and the stories hidden within. What happened to her brother? Did she escape, or was she lost to the whispers too? I don't know if it was all real or part of an overactive imagination. I only know I needed to get away. Some days I find myself looking up the area, checking the local news for missing persons, but nothing comes up. I guess some places keep their secrets buried beneath the surface, and part of me is grateful I got out. Every once in a while I can still hear the echoes of that haunting melody calling me back, a reminder that not every dark water comes from a place of nature, but rather from something deeper, the unknown. And that's a truth I'm not sure I want to face.